next step is to texture the foam. We're just going to use standard spray paint to do that. We won't actually paint the stone, it'll eat away at the styrofoam. So come on over here and check this out. If you're not getting enough texture, just put a little more. Do the sides as well, kind of soften them up. Looks like we need a little more, don't you think? And zoom in down on here and show all the texturing that the spray paint did. As you can see, in some places I got a little more aggressive than in others. And then you can actually peel up where the paint was. You'll see it's not a perfectly smooth edge, but it looks really great, like stone that's been eaten away a little bit. There's that. And then I'll do the rest, of course, with the tape. But I wanted to show you this little trick for shaping, because I'm going to try and shape this to look a little more, rounded off. And you see how the tool just does that so smoothly. Now again, it still won't be perfect. It is foam we're dealing with, but because it's a stone, a gravestone that's supposed to look old, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You get the idea. You can even round up his ears a little bit. See that? And I may even cut off his ears a little bit down here. See how it just eats away? Let's do this side. Okay, here is a look at the stone after the painting and the tape ripped off. As you can see, there's a lot of texture, some places more than others, but I think it came out real good. Here's my little man. I used the iron to shape his head a little bit. Obviously it's not perfect. I'd love for it to be round up front, and then the wings, and then I put little cracks in them. Melted around the edges real good down here. It's really sturdy. When you burn it, it kind of gives it almost more strength than it had before. So there's a look at it before the final paint job. Now the next step is to spray the headstone with Kills. You need to use Kills because it won't eat away at the foam like regular spray paint does. And so Kills gives us a nice base coat. On which we can do other layers of other colors. We have a layer of Kills on the tombstone now. Admittedly, I might have put it on a little thick in places as it took away some of the texturing, but I think it'll still look good. Now I've got some moss green, some black, And this is interesting. This is for marking athletic fields, but it spits the paint out in this kind of, you'll see here in a second. So I'm just going to play with it a little bit and see what kind of textures I can get. I'm just going to go right over the letters because I'm going to come back and highlight those later. A little green. And as you can see, watch what this does. Too much. No big deal. There, see how that's starting to look like a stone? Oh, shadow. Okay. Alright, so we've completely sprayed the stone with all sorts of different colors. We had kind of a moss green in there and a white and a black. Kind of got this cool texture to it. And now to highlight my gargoyle, I'm doing a little sponge painting, and you may already know how to do this, but the trick is, you know, you got to move the sponge around in different angles so you don't get like a pattern over and over. That ought to highlight the darkness of the gargoyle and give it kind of a cool stone texture. Now I may go into these cracks with even more paint. I haven't decided yet. But be sure and when you get paint on the sponge, be sure and dab it off too so you don't get a big square. Sometimes I like to do the first dab on the back so I can see how that's a little bit of a texture look. And if you overdo it, you can always spray it down with a little bit of white or something on top of it too. You know, it's not like it's permanent. Well, it's permanent, but you can cover it up. So I sponged all the areas that I wanted to highlight in black. And then I went over it with a little bit of gray and then a little bit of white. So I got kind of almost like a marbleized look on some of it up there. And now just to highlight my little gargoyle guy, I'm going to go through with just some black paint and see how that works out. Be just enough to like show off his features. And if you mess up, you can just go back over it with the sponge. It's all black and grays and whites anyway. And then I'll highlight his fingers and maybe even do a little bit of shadowing here around the cross to give it a little more highlight. Almost like it's got its own shadow. And here is our finished product.